Welcome to the Soulish Podcast. My name is Whitney Apke and I am your host. On today's episode, we're going to talk about tapping into your intuition and trusting your inner wisdom for guidance as you go through this soul journey in this life that we're talking about today. So I have a couple techniques, things, tips, tricks that I use to tap into my intuition. And I actually did a story post a couple months back where I was kind of talking about trusting your intuition versus instinct and the difference between the two. And I think that this is some of these tools and techniques that I've used to kind of understand, where is this coming from? Is this coming from my intuition or is this coming from instinct? Because sometimes instinct is more on the side of ego, and it can feel very real and very similar. And in a lot of ways, your instinct is trying to self-protect, right? So it has your best interest, but sometimes it's not the wisest, or it's not in alignment with who you are or where you want to be or who you want to be. But your intuition is always going to be on the non-ego side, on your spirit, intuition, guidance, higher self vibe. And so your intuition is always going to know what is actually in alignment for you. But your intuition will sometimes ask you things or lead you in a way that causes your instincts to just misfire, because it's like, oh, this feels unsafe, like we've never done this before. This is a new thing. And so it can be very unsettling instinctually, but intuitively, and you feel in your gut that this is true. So sometimes that's really difficult and nuancy to figure out. And in this episode, I really want to dive into that. So let's get started. One of the things that I love to do when I really feel like an intuitive ping and it feels very foreign, or it feels kind of out of left field, and it's not something that I really had been ruminating on myself, or something that I had been thinking about, but it's just kind of this random little drop. I've had this in ways where I've had like deja vu-ish type dreams. I've had it where I've just had this nudge about this person or about this situation or this thing that I want to try. And it's really interesting. Like recently, what's been coming up more and more and more to me is to get with horses. And I'm like, it's so funny because as much as I love horses, like I'm your horse chick, like they are my favorite animal on the planet besides killer whales. Killer whales have always been, orcas have always been like a just magical creature being to me. And horses feel so much the same way, but horses are a little bit easier to get around than orcas. But I have recently been just feeling like I need to get on horseback again. It's been years. I think it's actually been I literally know it's been 12 years since I've been on the back of a horse. Like, that is sad. That needs to not be the case. So it's like, it's time, but it's been coming up in like random podcast interviews that I'm listening to, and they'll be like, yeah, and I equestrian therapy. And I'm like, what? Like, what, how random is that's coming up? So I've been just also been feeling this intuitive ping, like even if I can't necessarily ride it, just to get around the horses and to love on them and maybe feed them carrots if I'm allowed. Just being around horses is something that my soul and my intuition is saying, like, this would really be supportive, girl. This would be really helpful to you. So I've been kind of like seeking that out and trying to find where I can do that in the Denver metro area. If hit your girl up, please. Thank you. But those like little intuitive pings, sometimes it's for something that's super supportive. In other things, like it's like a warning. Like I've had more like real, like straight up intuitive nudges around warnings of things, including people coming up and then like I end up getting like attacked and stuff. It's like crazy. Or they're angry and I had no clue, or something happens, some disgruntlement or disagreement or misunderstanding. and then I'm like, whoa, no wonder this person was coming up. Like the energy was hot and ready. So sometimes it can be like that, but ways that I tap in when I get like these intuitive hits, or if I feel like I'm not getting anything and I've been kind of like seeking it out, seeking that guidance, these are a couple of things that I do to like really help me hone in on that or get clarity on something that I'm feeling. So one of the ways that I do is I listen to my body. This is the number one way that I can figure out if this is on the instinct side versus intuition side. And just because it's instinct side doesn't mean it's bad or wrong. I listen to that too, but I weigh it up against what I'm feeling intuitively, because not always are they in alignment, but sometimes they are absolutely in alignment. And my instinct is matching my intuition, and it's a full body yes, or it's a full body no. That's when people say, like, it was a fuck yes, it was a fuck no, is because they had both instinct and intuition matching. And that's when you get that full body yes or full body no, is because all systems are firing on both ends and you're picking up on it. But when they're not in alignment, listening to your body and what your body is feeling. So oftentimes, like for me, one of my signals is I will get flushed, and it'll be so random, and sometimes it won't even be really associated with the thought or the feeling that I'm having, but it'll just be this like energy that comes through me, and I'm like, interesting, why is my fight or flight response like going hot, all of a sudden? Like, what the heck? Like, I'm not thinking anything, I'm not feeling anything. Like, why am I just like, you know? And I feel it in my body. I feel this hum in my body, but it's not associated with any thought, it's not associated with any emotion. But then all of a sudden the thought will come or the emotion will come, but I remember when I do feel that emotion or that thought comes, I'm like, my body was picking up on it first. So that can happen a lot of times when there's a thought or a feeling that causes that instinctual fight or flight response. I will get tingle in my knees, like a little tingly, or I will even feel it like in my elbows. I don't know if anybody else feel tingly in their knees or their elbows, but I'll like literally feel that, and I'll go, I those are like the signs of like running. Like I have energy in my elbows and my knees to help me run. And so like that's kind of a fight or flight response that I know is kind of actually quite common, although it feels very like unique, very quirky. But it's actually like when I looked it up and when I talked to my homeopath, because we were talking about like my cortisol levels, and she was like, no, that's a natural response for a fight or flight. That's the flight response, is like you get tingly in your knees and your elbows because your body's like signaling and actually probably like even pre-lubricating my knees and my elbows, like my joints, in order for me to run. And I probably honestly feel it in my ankles. I just am not aware because it feels just so weird in your knees and your in your elbows. But that's one way. So I think too, if you get the butterflies, like I know in a lot of dating, I hear if you get butterflies with somebody, run, because it's we've been taught that it's a positive thing, like, oh my God, he gave me butterflies or she gave me butterflies. But actually, that's a fight or flight response. That's your nervous system saying something isn't okay, something isn't right. I'm not in alignment with this. I do not resonate. And so it doesn't make that person evil or bad or anything, but there's just definitely something here, this energy here that is not supportive. And that is your body signaling that it's not okay with this. And so I will get that, no lie. I will get that in certain stores. I'll go into a store and I'll feel that feeling. And I honor it, man. When I feel that fight or flight feeling and I feel butterflies all of a sudden, and it's not because of anything or anyone in there. It's just I walked in and I felt that way. I walk right out on out. Like I don't know what's going to happen, and maybe nothing happens, but I'm just always going to honor that feeling because there's something not right. And maybe me staying there would have made something happen, you know? Um Maybe not. Who knows? But I don't care, and it's not a fear thing. It's more of like my body is telling me something. My body has wisdom, and my body is connected to my intuition. And so if my intuition is picking up on something that I haven't gotten mentally or emotionally yet, but my body is registering it, I'm going to honor that because all tools are meant for your survival and your highest and greatest good. So it's not a fear thing. Again, I want to emphasize that it's not a fear thing, but it's just an understanding that wherever you're at, whoever you're speaking to, whatever you're thinking, whatever you're feeling, it's not supportive. Ultimately, it's just not supportive. So change it, shift it, honor that. But that's one way that I like really tap into my intuition and I decide, is this instinct or intuition? And a lot of times instinct is just purely physical. It's a pure physical response and it's usually fear-based, ego-based. And when it's in my intuition and I can feel it in my body, there is a total peace that is there, that is present, and no fear. And that's where I'm like, nope, this is just what I like to call a knowing. Like I just know. I can't explain to you how I know what I know, but I know in my system that this is for me or this is not for me. Another way too is I really like to journal my thoughts. I think that there's something really powerful about writing your thoughts out, writing those intuitive nudges out, writing the things that you're thinking, feeling, sensing, whatever it is. Writing it out is a great way to kind of like work with it and kind of work it out sometimes. I'll often write down dreams because I really want to document it. And another way to do this too is also a voice journal. I will send myself a voice memo with every detail, with everything, with every thought. And I've been doing that for a long, long, long time, especially with dreams, because sometimes it's like the downloads are coming too fast to write it out. And so I find that I lose things in the sauce, but to be able to speak it like as I'm remembering it and seeing it happen, that's really helpful to me. Another way that I know people manifest is they'll have like an accountability buddy. Like Yasmin, who's been on the podcast, is my accountability buddy, and we voice memo each other back all the time on things that we want to manifest or things that we want to see or things that are blocks or limitations or whatever in our life. And we share life back and forth with each other. But it's funny because I'll re-listen to things that I've sent her and I'll re-listen to things that she sent me and I'll reflect back on it. And it's really cool to either see those things like happen or shift or change just because we are accountable to each other with our words and with what we share. And it's a great like remembrance tool, but also speaking things into existence, I think is really powerful. And one of the biggest ways that we activate our innate ability to manifest and to tap into our intuition, our inner guidance, and to trust it, to also trust the process and have like a track record of everything that you've ever shared with your partner or your friend or voice memoing yourself, and you can go back and you have record of it. It's kind of fun. Another way that I trust my intuition and trust the process, like the guidance, is self compassion, self love, really, because a lot of times we're trying to navigate, and sometimes what you're feeling may not manifest or actually happen the way that you were sensing it. And because there's free will, right? There's a bunch of different things. And so having self compassion and having self love and understanding that we're all out here trying to like, make it happen and like feel it out and like get it right. But like there's free will on the planet, right? So everyone has a choice, which really changes things. It changes the lay of the land, so to speak. So just because you felt something or had an intuitive nudge, a dream or something like that, and it didn't happen, doesn't mean that what you got was wrong or you're not picking it up. That you aren't connected to your intuition, you can't connect with it, you're getting it wrong, you're not psychic. We all have psychic abilities. We all have the ability to connect in with spirit, with our soul, and with our body. So scratch that off of your list of excuses of why you're, not compassionate to yourself in this process. I think it's of the highest importance out of everything that I could ever share to really not criticize and judge yourself on the journey. But also at the same time, I have a phrase that I like to use that, I kind of picked up in business, and I had heard this said a few times and I was like, I'm gonna take that. is in like business conversations, we'll be like, we'll table that for later. That's what like the CEO says, right? We'll table that for later. And all that means is let's hold on that. So like we're not taking it off the table. We're keeping it on the table to be discussed, but we're not going to like continue the discussion. We're going to hold that. So I like that. So I often will say, I'm going to table that. Like if I'm getting an intuitive nudge for something and it's not concrete and hard and I'm not getting like the full body effect of like change now, shift now, leave the room now, like I'm not getting anything like that, I will say, okay, I'm going to hold on that, especially if it's related to a person or something like that. I tend to not make big moves fast. I really like sit on things and I let it simmer. And if it turns out to be like what I'm picking up on, then I will like totally then make an aligned action, as I like to say, with that intuitive nudge that feels like it's in resonance with me and in alignment, and also compassionate and from a place of love. And all of those things are really important. Not like I'm so much better than this and yeah, that's right, take it, like we never want to come from that space because that's not so great and positive. But if I have an intuitive nudge on something, let's say like it's an investing, and I have an intuitive nudge and I want to sit on that, I want to table it until I really, really, really feel like, yeah, this is something that it's not going away. I still feel it. In fact, it's only growing. So let me go ahead and take an aligned action with that nudge and see. Sometimes even then, it doesn't work out like I thought, or like I wanted it to, or expected it to, or saw that it would, right? But regardless, we're navigating the best we know how. We're trusting that inner guidance. And so I like to use that tool of tabling it because it gives me a moment to remind myself and to have self-compassion and realize like I'm not always right. And I'll even tell clients this that are like, tell me, what do you feel? What do you feel into? And I'll always say, look, I'm human. Like, and I have a filter. Pure disclaimer here. I'm human. I am fallible. I don't always get it right, but this is what I'm sensing, you know? Like as I feel into this, does that resonate with you? Do you feel the same thing? Is that like a yes or no thing when I say this or say that? And so I'm really big on that of like have compassion for self and have compassion for others. Not everyone's going to get it right. And you can be the most high spiritual being on the planet, and we've seen every single one of them have a human moment, right? No guru, no one, even Jesus like has had a life where they did not make a mistake or they didn't say something and it go the opposite way. Everyone, every spiritual being, every person has had a human moment, and that is okay. There is nothing wrong with that. So I think in trusting your intuition, following your inner guidance, trusting your inner guidance, trusting the process, what that looks like, it's really important to practice self-compassion as you're on your journey and in your process. Really, really, really important, because the moment that you judge yourself, you criticize yourself, you doubt, you disconnect from the very tool that is an innate to yourself. It's innate to have an intuition. It's part of your makeup. So if you start doubting it instead of working with it and learning how it communicates with you specifically, because it'll always look different for each one of us, you're disconnecting and you're not giving yourself an opportunity to learn, because you're thinking it has to be perfect every time and it has to go according to plan. And that's just not the way that life is, nor how we navigate our intuition, tapping into it and using it for guidance. So hopefully this episode was helpful to you. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this inspired and encouraged you as you tap into your intuition and navigate the whole process in the best way that you know how. I hope that you have a lot of compassion for yourself in the process. Love you guys.